Joanna Eaton is a clinical territory manager from Medtronic Diabetes. She is also besides a registered dietitian, she's a certified diabetes clinical education specialist and has an MPH from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Amy Michaels comes from Medtronics as well as a clinical territory manager, and is also a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes clinical education specialist. She has a master's of science from West Virginia University in nutrition and food science. So we are so very fortunate to have them. And the format of tonight is we're going to talk to you about the 10 big health and nutrition trends that are happening here in 2022. And we're going to go through each trend with you. And we want you to participate. So we have a polling question for you for each of the 10 trends. And they're anonymous, so don't worry, we won't know who voted for what. And just to get us started off for each trend. And we would like to hold questions for the very end. And at the very end also, we'll be giving you some information about the nutrition program here at Hood College. So without ado, Joanna is going to start you off.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Nick, do you want to pull up the question? Okay, so our first polling question, the most important reasons for older people to be active is all of the following except for one. So pick the answer that you think is not true. So help to prevent falls, decrease the amount of protein needed each day, maintain muscle mass, or maintain or lose weight. And we'll give you a couple minutes or a minute to submit your answers. Did we get all the answers yet?
Still waiting on a few more, so maybe another 30 seconds, and then we'll release the answers. And if you're using a mobile phone or for some reason are unable to answer the poll, feel free to, in the chat, put your answers if you would like.
All right, you guys are smart. So yes, 63% of you chose the correct answer. As we get older, we actually need more protein, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. So very good. Great job. All right. Now I know most of you guys are probably not thinking about aging yet, which is a good thing. But it is important. And a lot of our population here in the US is aging. So one important trend that we wanted to talk about in regards to aging is just protein and the role that it can help play in maintaining muscle mass as we're older. So how muscle is developed in our bodies through protein is turned on by the mTOR switch that activates muscle growth and repair. And it basically converts the proteins that we eat from food into muscle mass. So there's two things that help with that: insulin, which is a growth hormone, and then leucine is the amino acid from protein that our body uses to make muscle mass. As we get older, the insulin loses its ability to convert protein into muscle mass. So as we age, 30 to 50% of our total muscle mass can be lost. And on average, after you hit the age of 30, it's about 3 to 8% of your muscle mass is lost per decade. So that's just if you're not doing anything, you're just maintaining the status quo, you're already kind of losing muscle mass, going downhill. So we want to help people be proactive and prevent that from happening. And one way we can do that is to eat more protein. So as a nutritionist, as a dietitian, I would encourage older people, especially, to get, healthy sources of protein, lean protein, unprocessed protein. You want to avoid the hot dogs and the bacon and the sausage and go for more of the chicken and the fish. Also plant-based proteins like tofu, beans, nuts, and seeds. And I'll just say one more thing. All of this also has to go hand in hand with weight-bearing exercise. So if you're eating the protein, but you're not working the muscles, it's not going to work. So also those weight-bearing, walking uphill, stairs, weights, any type of exercise where you're lifting weights or having a little bit of impact is going to help with the protein as well. Okay, so I have the next topic as well. So this one, the next nutrition trend is technology and the future of food. So can we get the poll for that one? Okay, so the question is, current problems with food production today include all but one of the following: environmental greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, the amount of ultra-processed food consumed, unsustainable to feed the expected 10 billion people on Earth by 2050, or increased use of fermentation technology. So which one of those is not a problem? All right, very good. Again, very smart audience. Great job. So 71% got the correct answer. So increasing use of fermentation technology is actually a good thing. That's not a problem. And that's one of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight. So great job. So one of the focuses of the nutrition program at Hood is going to be on sustainability. And the reason why that's so important is we're estimated to have about 10 billion people by 2050 on the planet. And we already have issues with hunger, obesity, food shortages. So it's going to be really important to figure out how to use food and technology, food science, so that we can meet the needs of all the people that are going to be hungry. And also to provide healthy, nutritious options that are affordable for people. So we're already struggling with that. And food technology is definitely one avenue that we can pursue to address those problems. So one of the topics of food technology is fermentation. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You guys have probably heard of fermentation. There's 3 types, and this is really interesting to me. So if anybody's had beer, wine, or cheese, yogurt, made a bread with yeast or eaten bread with yeast, that is involving traditional fermentation. So we're taking a microorganism, a microbe such as bacteria or yeast, and we're feeding it something, and it's converting that ingredient into another ingredient that gives the food that signature taste. So the yeasty flavor of beer, the tanginess of yogurt, it all comes from that fermentation process. So that is the first way that, we started using food technology hundreds of years ago. The second way is biomass fermentation. So the main difference with this is that the microbes are actually becoming the ingredient in the food themselves. So we're fermenting the microbes, and they're becoming a different ingredient that we can eat. So an example of this would be probiotic supplements that are added to food or in the pill form, mycoproteins that are in mushroom burgers like corn products or fine products. So we're actually taking a microbe and changing it. And the microbes that they use for this are very high in protein and they grow very fast. And so because of those two things, they're able to create a high amount of protein in a very short amount of time, much shorter than it would take to, say, grow a cow or a chicken, or even grow plants in a field. So lots of benefits there. And then the third type of fermentation, which is the most advanced type, and as you can see, it requires a high degree of purification. So we're getting down into the really nitty-gritty of the ingredients, but we're taking a microbe and basically turning it into a little production factory for a certain nutrient. So this is how insulin is made, for example. The microbes that we have, we can genetically modify them to create certain flavor profiles, certain vitamins, amino acids, flavors, pigments, enzymes. So we're taking these microbes, genetically altering them so that they create a certain substance. So an example of this, besides insulin, would be the Beyond Beef burger. So if anybody's tried the Beyond Beef burger, you've tried something that has been made with precision fermentation. So that is where a lot of the research and the investments are going into, is companies that are focusing on that, because they can actually make bioidentical proteins like dairy products, meat products. They're very similar to the real thing, but they don't actually have any animal in them whatsoever. The one thing that's important to consider for dietitians is that the bioidentical substances can still create an allergic reaction in people. So even though something may technically be vegan or dairy-free, if it's bioidentical, it could still give that person a similar reaction if they're allergic to the real thing. So just something to keep in mind. But it's a really exciting field, and I think that all three of these methods are going to be really important for feeding the population. Okay, and my last topic is personalized nutrition or precision nutrition. So can we get the slide for that? Okay, so personalized nutrition uses all the following information to prescribe an individual diet, except for which of the following? So mindful eating, DNA, microbiome, and biochemical markers. All right, so this was a tough one. Even for me, I had to look at the answer from Anne to make sure I was on the right track. So the answer is actually mindful eating. So as big of a fan as I am of mindful eating, it doesn't really have anything to do with personalized or precision nutrition in this case. We're looking at more of a biological response, whereas mindful eating is more of a technique and a behavioral psychological approach to healthy eating. So mindful eating is still wonderful, but doesn't really have to do with this. So when we're talking about personalized nutrition, we're looking at individuals' responses to specific foods and ingredients. So we're looking at nutrigenomics, which is how their genes affect how they respond to diet. We're looking at their gut microbiome. So everybody has a different microbiome makeup, depending on where they grew up, how active they were, their diet, their mother's diet, all of those things. We're looking at how they metabolize different things, and then also how food behaviors, dietary habits, physical activity, all of those things affect their diet. So basically, it's looking at how can we help people beyond just a general nutrition recommendation. So the idea is based out of personalized medicine, which is using a unique approach to help each patient manage or treat disease. So this is using a specific diet to help patients manage or treat disease. Hold on one second. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the main thing that this is a really exciting field. And there are companies that are doing testing, genetic testing and microbiome testing, and then using that information to give patients or customers diet information that's personalized to them. But we really need a lot more research before we can kind of stand on that very solidly. It's going to take a lot of clinical trials, as well as creating databases of genetic information that we can compare results to before we can start really implementing this. But some ways that we are already implementing it is, of course, with food allergies and intolerances. So if someone's lactose intolerant, they're going to be affected by dairy differently than somebody else. Same thing with celiac disease and gluten. So, another place that this applies is diabetes. We know that people respond differently to different types of carbs. So one food might spike somebody's blood sugar, more compared to somebody else. So we can use this in our day-to-day, but there's still a lot of research that needs to be done, but it's very exciting. And, you guys are the future, so maybe you'll be figuring it out.
All right, the next one I have, and it's immune health. And here is your question. The following nutritional factors weaken the immune system except for, so pick the one out of the list that does not weaken the immune system. Is it age? Is it obesity? Is it vitamin D? Or is it ultra processed foods? Okay, so it looks like we have a tie between vitamin D and ultra processed foods. And the winner, or the correct answer, is vitamin D. Vitamin D actually is an important factor in immune health. So it does not weaken the immune system. And the reason why ultra processed foods are there is because of the high energy, high fat content, high saturated fat content, and those are definitely known to be factors that will weaken the immune system. Now, the reason why immune health is in one of the top 10 trends, which I'm sure you all know, is that, and it's been there for the past 3 years, is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, individuals know that they really need to keep their immunity top of the mind as a desired health benefit. And ways to do that, obviously, is with fresh fruits and vegetables, also vitamin D, zinc, selenium, and vitamin C. So those have had a large focus, as well as yeast beta-glucans are known to be immunity provoking. as far as creating better immunity. Probiotics, as Joanna had said, elderberry, and even garlic. And I'm sure that you know that omega-3 fatty acids, more specifically the alpha-linolenic side of the omega-3s. So that would be your docosahexaenoic acid, which is your fish oil, or you can get vegan DHA oil, and decreasing the amount of the omega-6s because they are more immune antagonists. So, for example, we need both as far as inflammation. When we get an injury, well, of course, we need the omega-6 because we need that injury to clot over. But the immune enhancing on the omega-3 sides is that really keeps our blood thinned, healthy, and is immune enhancing. So what are some other things with immune health? Well, we do know that as we age, and this is congruent to what Joanna said, that besides protein and muscle health, our immune health decreases just with age. So the older population, which is a significant part of the US, they have a decreased immune function naturally, and that's why they're promoted to take the flu vaccine and actually boost up their immune enhancing food and ingredients. And I have the next one also, which is nutrition accountability. So our question for nutrition accountability is, what is the most important reason for nutrition accountability? So you just pick one. More than one may be important, but what's the most important? Oh, wow. We do have an exceptionally smart audience tonight. Very good. Yes, regulations for food safety are really the most important reasons for nutrition accountability. And that landscape actually is changing. And the reason why it's changing is because not just the United States, but countries along the globe are implementing more stringent measures because we are globally consuming food. We're importing, exporting from country to country. That's one reason. Another reason is that consumers are much more health conscious now. And so there are more restrictions that are being advertised and enforced as far as foods high in sugar, foods high in salt, and saturated fat, as well as trans fat. So these accountability measures are actually affecting what our food labeling is looking like and the marketing of foods and beverages. And one example of that is that Europe is first starting this, but probably the US is closely behind, is that they're going to do a lot of more front package labeling of nutritional content and regulations. I'm sure you'll notice that with most food products now, when you pick it up, the food label is on the side. And So if a consumer chooses to look to the side, they see it. Front packaging will put it like out in front and with larger print. The other thing is that with this accountability, many governments and countries are going to be less forgiving to the food industry that do not follow guidelines. So that is a good thing. And that maybe you've seen in the literature or not, that I know I've seen in nutrition articles that they're doing a lot more studies on the ultra processed foods. And so consumers will start to hear that. And a lot of times you think of that as empty calorie foods or convenience foods, but we need to make sure that there's certain foods that are processed to a high degree for safety reasons. So, kind of differentiating between the two. So this is a big trend. And bottom line, what we're going to see is some different food packaging labeling.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Amy, and I'm going to be talking about body positive weight management. So the polling question states that body positive weight management does not include, is it additional protein for satiety, drinks with mood benefits, deprivation, or new flavors for digestion? Go ahead and submit your best answer, and then we will see what we come up with. Yep, smart cookies or smart bananas. I don't know. So, right. So deprivation. So, when we really talk about this body positive weight management, what is that? And really it's a societal progression that's putting a more positive mindset on weight. For instance, looking more at what my body can do as opposed to what is the number on the scale, right? And it's just really moving away from the mindset focused around restriction and deprivation. So along with moving into this body positive image, we have to look at foods and beverages and how they're going to kind of follow suit along with that. So for instance, consumers are going to be looking for low calorie products potentially, but they're going to be looking for those low calorie products that offer other benefits. So for instance, things that can help with mood, or the addition of protein or fiber that will allow for more satiety, or even other benefits that will focus on immunity or digestion. So along with that, really the taste and flavor of these foods are paramount, right? So I will not lie, from time to time, I get samples of nutritional supplements. And so I had one the other morning and they've come a ways. I mean, I'm older than Joanna for sure, but still sometimes there is a little bit more that can be done. So something that's kind of interesting, we all know that the senses, taste and salty, sweet, etc. So there is this Japanese flavor concept called kokumi, which really, it kind of promotes richness and roundness and complexity of savory products without the addition of calories. So for instance, taking something like a stew and simmering it to really bring out the flavor of the products in the stew, but not getting any additional calories. And so I think this is, a really positive, no pun intended, but approach to looking at weight, and, you know, just kind of not letting the scale necessarily define us. So more to come on positive weight management and positive body image.
Okay, so Anne has the next one, and that's the microbiome. And so your question to answer, should you choose, is the microbiome is in the following areas of the human body except for, so out of the mouth, skin, digestive tract, and hair, pick the area of the body that it's not necessarily in or evaluated or studied. I have a feeling we have the really smarties here tonight. These questions are way too, very good. These questions are way too, you're right. Hair is not necessarily known for the microbiome, so great job. So the microbiome, just want to look at the overall picture. You can kind of see that there's overlap between the trends. Remember, Joanna talked about precision nutrition that involves the microbiome. It also involves elderly health as well as immune function. So in our body, we have over 100 trillion microbiomes. Every individual has a different amount, types, design of microbiome. So we're all very individual. A lot of it is based on our environment, where we live, as well as what we eat. And believe it or not, our microbiome is very influential in health and disease. So not only being healthy, but fighting off disease. What we want to think of as the microbiome are live organisms. And when we think of live organisms, especially in consumption, we think of probiotics. And so probiotics and microbiome are often studied together. And we look a lot as far as skin, mouth, and digestive tract. So with dental health, the microbiomes in our oral cavity are paramount. Skin, digestive tract has been studied really the most, as well as our respiratory system. So that the most research done so far has looked at the microbiome and probiotics as far as the incidence in upper respiratory tract infections, and as well as the duration, how long the infection lasts. And it's definitive that when you have, for example, more probiotics, you have a lower incidence of upper respiratory tract infections. It's also been studied, and there's evidence that it can help reduce weight gain and improve insulin resistance. And there's some literature as far as reducing types of, feelings of depression and anxiety. One thing you should know that as far as the very beginning of the microbiome happens at birth, and a baby will inherit for time being mom's microbiome when there's a vaginal birth. When there's a C-sectional birth, it's more of a sterile situation. And so the baby that comes from a vaginal birth will actually develop their immune system, healthy immune system, faster than with a C-section. Same thing with infant formula feeding versus breastfeeding. Breastfeeding, human milk is not sterile. and infant formula is. So there's microbiome in breast milk, and that helps to develop the baby's immune system. And that's just about it, I think. We just keep developing and studying more of the microbiome, and that is going to be pivotal as far as being used in precision nutrition to develop the more individualized diet, rather than certain diets based on studies are more population diets.
Awesome. So let's switch gears for a second and talk about mood, cognition, and sleep. So our polling question is, sleep quality and duration are affected by all the following nutrients except for, so you're going to choose the one nutrient that does not affect sleep quality and duration of sleep. And submit those answers. Okay, so that was a split there, but those of you who answered vitamin C answered correctly. So moving ahead, we'll talk a little bit about other vitamins and nutrients and how they can impact food, cognition, and sleep. But really just remembering that food and mood are kind of intrinsically intertwined, both kind of being able to affect the other. And so it's interesting that there are a lot of foods available or products available right now that are using the terms nootropics and adaptogens. And people are really becoming more familiar with these ingredients in the products that they consume. So things such as turmeric and ginseng and B vitamins and ginkgo. But really the benefits of nootropics and adaptogens are that these substances may impact cognition and mood and even cortisol levels, which have to do with stress within the body. So it is very interesting to kind of see how all of this develops. To be honest, nootropics and adaptogens, I had to do a little bit of research on my own just to kind of get myself more up to speed on those. But it's also really important to note that, not only are mood and food related, but also it's intrinsic to sleep. So from a sleep perspective, there was some data actually from 26,000 participants in the NHANES data, and they analyzed this data, and what they found was that adults with short sleep deprivation actually had lower intakes of calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D. So it's also really important to note that adequate levels of vitamins A and K, as well as those omega-3 fatty acids, can play a role in sleep regulation. So it's really neat to kind of see how all of this can come together full circle. And obviously we know that nutrition can have an impact on sleep, but likewise, if we don't sleep well, that can certainly impact our behavior in terms of eating. And so there was some research that showed that insufficient sleep was related to a greater incidence of obesity in adults. And so just kind of moving forward, it's going to be really important, to keep these things in mind related to mood and cognition and sleep. And just kind of exciting to see where all this research takes us over the next couple of years.
Okay, so now the next trend, I think this is the second to the last, is botanicals. All right, we've got a botanical boom that's going on as far as a trend. So your question is, Botanicals are plant-derived extracts, and examples include all but one of the following: turmeric, cocoa, green tea, or olive oil. Okay, very interesting. So there's a bit of a split. Very good. The correct answer is olive oil. You could have some botanicals that perhaps were infused into the olive oil, but the plant extract itself is not necessarily a fatty acid or a lipid. Just to mention cocoa, there's been some really good recent research on cocoa to look at the positive effects it has on cardiovascular disease, believe it or not. So some of the trends that have been happening in 2022 is that with the health concerns and well-being, that consumers are looking for more the natural plant derivatives in their food products. And some examples of that would be ginkgo, ginseng, mint, vanilla. Those are some of the more common ones, and garlic, which have some, proven health benefits. So this is a wide open area for development. Botanicals, we know historically, are used as medicinals other than the herbs and spices. And so some of the newer health aspects are going to need some more rigorous randomized controlled studies. But some of the other benefits other than the heart health for cocoa is that turmeric has been known to help with joint pain and as an anti-inflammatory. So, kind of when you pair these things together, thinking about food products, turmeric and omega-3s would be helpful. Green tea's been used with weight management. And then a lot of botanicals, or not a lot, but some botanicals have been found to help with encouraging sleep. So it's really looking at the scientific based evaluations, and that's a lot of times where we fall short with dietary supplements. We're hoping in the next era of foods that these compounds will be studied more rigorously. But where the consumer kind of weighs in is that these botanicals are going to really affect the taste as well as the health of food products. And they may be used as delivery systems as well. And they're going to be used in the areas besides immunity, digestive health, like your ginger, energy, stress, sleep, and cognition. So really be on the lookout for more botanicals that are going to be entering the food market. And the nutrition accountability arena or trend is going to be charged with, making sure that these health claims are backed up by evidence.
Okay, and so we are gonna talk about our 10th trend, which is plant-based food. So if we could get the polling question, the hype and importance surrounding plant-based foods includes all but one of the following. Are they nutritionally healthier than animal-based foods, use less land and produce less greenhouse gas emission, fewer taste and food safety problems with plant-based foods, innovations are using less sugar and sodium? We need the Jeopardy theme music while this is while we're waiting here.
I'll do it. Do, 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 do.
I'll note
Thank
that for
you.
our next webinar.
I think you should. Yes. So I think there is a lot of hype literally around plant-based food moving forward, and obviously that's what we're going to talk about. But do we have the results yet, or are we still okay? So you know what? I was a little confused by this one too. I'm not going to lie. So the actual answer is innovations are using less sodium and sugar. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit more, maybe to just increase our knowledge. So in 2019, the EAT and Lancet Commission basically got 37 leading scientists from around the world together and kind of looked at this plant-based diet. And there were two conclusions that they came up with. One stated that diets that were largely plant-based with minimum red meat and sugar would be the best way to feed the expanding population. I mean, we're growing by leaps and bounds. Secondly, they also found or stated that a widespread shift in the way people eat could prevent approximately 11 million premature deaths per year, which is like astonishing to me, but wow, 11 million premature deaths per year, and slow environmental degradation. So there really is this growing desire for plant-based foods. People are looking for variety. They're looking for things that taste good. And obviously they want products that are going to have the nutritional equivalency to animal protein. But in developing these foods and products, there are a couple of challenges. And so the two biggest challenges are the taste. There can be these off tastes in plant proteins, and it's really going to differ depending on how much plant protein is used in different foods and beverages. But flavor, is huge. It sells. And then the second one is food safety, which is kind of interesting because you think, well, it's plant, like, you're not necessarily held to the same standards as you are when preparing animal protein. But food safety with plants or plant-derived protein actually is kind of a whole new arena, and it's just constantly advancing. So definitely, those are kind of the two main challenges when it comes to developing plant-based proteins. And just some kind of key takeaways. I mean, there's a lot of information on this. We only have so much time, but really just keep in mind that when choosing or developing potentially these foods, nutrition really needs to be at the top of mind, right? So remember those dietary recommendations, and we really need to encourage eating more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes and nuts. Also really making sure that we're mindful of sodium and sugars and saturated fats in these products. And then also thirdly, just remembering that not all plant proteins are equal. And so protein quality should also be considered. So I'm looking forward to, learning more and about plant-based proteins. But that's just kind of a little tidbit and snippet to get you kind of thinking about that trend. So at this point, I think we covered all the trends, but I'm going to turn it back over to Nick and Anne. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joanna and Amy. It was so great to have you both here. Before we get into our Q&A session, Anne and I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the nutrition science program here at Hood College, and I'm going to turn it over to Anne.
Thank you. Well, I first want to echo what Nick said. The panel wouldn't have been as fantastic as I think has been if it wasn't for Joanna and Amy, and we're trying to coerce them into being part of the faculty in this program. So the nutrition science program at Hood is pretty unique from other places that I've been at, in that there's 3 tracks. So there is the dietetics track, where it is the future model graduate program, where it's competency-based education. And within 20 months, you have combined didactic coursework and supervised 1,000 hours of supervised experiential learning, which is what the dietetic internship was, all within 20 months. And then graduates are ready to sit for the national examination to be a registered dietitian. The nutrition science track is more of the applied nutrition route. It may be really interesting for a variety of students, perhaps already registered dietitians that want that master's degree to be competitive with the new graduates coming out. Or if you're not a registered dietitian, this track can prepare you to sit for the to become a CNS, or a certified nutrition science certification. And the sustainable nutrition track is, I've searched in all the universities. So it's very rare, it's new, it's getting traction as far as a lot of different jobs. And it's really going to be out in the forefront, because as what we've alluded to throughout tonight is that in 2050, the global population is going to double. So it's going to go from 5 million to 10 million. And if we continue to eat the way we eat now, we will need 3 planet Earths to feed that many people. So this is a forerunner as far as sustainable nutrition. Hood College has also a program just in sustainable science. And so there's a lot of cross reference courses between that. So we've got a huge wealth and history with that, as far as community ties and other programs in sustainability going on. And please, feel free to ask more questions. We have something here for actually everybody, anybody that's interested in nutrition.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Sure.
And for more information about the program or the application process, I always recommend to reach out to our office directly at gofurther@hood.edu. That's the best way to get in touch with myself, as well as Dr. Davis. So that's a really good place to start. And then along with that, if you are interested in learning a bit more, we do have a virtual admissions event, our Graduate Admissions Cafe, starting next week. What's great about this session is it's only an hour long. There's options at noon and 5:30, and there are personalized breakout rooms. So when you enter the event, you get to meet our dean, Dr. April Bolton, for a brief welcome. And then each program has its breakout room. So instead of being in one big room with all the other prospective students, you get to be in a virtual breakout room with Dr. Davis, as well as like-minded prospective students that are also thinking about the nutrition science program. It's completely online via Zoom, very similar to this event. And along with learning more about our program and being able to ask Dr. Davis questions, we also have breakout rooms for admissions. So I will be there and can talk a little bit more about the admissions process, the student perspective. So other students in the graduate school, you can meet them, as well as a financial aid and a funding breakout room as well, if you have questions in that realm. So highly recommend this event, especially because of the flexibility of it. So that is everything that we have, and we wanted to take the last few minutes to see if anyone had any questions either for Dr. Davis or our two panelists. And feel free either to raise your hand and unmute, or you can ask them in the chat.
Hi, I have a question. So I'm just curious, with everything we're talking about, I know you all eat really healthy, but I'm kind of curious what you do for supplements. Like, do you take any supplements? And what would you suggest?
I'll weigh in on that. I know that I'm not the end all be all, but for me personally, I take vitamin D in the wintertime. And the reason is that where we live in Maryland, we don't get enough exposure to strong enough sun rays for our skin to make adequate amounts of vitamin D. If you live in Southern Virginia and on, you can, you might not need that. But at latitudes where we are and higher, you just don't get the exposure because of the coldness and because the sun's rays aren't as strong. So I probably take more than I should. I think it's supposed to take 1,000 micrograms, but I take 2,000 micrograms per day.
Well, and I also take 2,000.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, the supplement question, it's so different and it depends on your stage in life and if you have any nutrition deficiencies. So for example, right now I'm pregnant. So I am taking fish oil, a prenatal, and I was taking vitamin C and E in the beginning just for like inflammation and things like that, but also my vitamin D. So yeah, it just depends on, there's really no like one answer, but I would say the one that we probably all should be taking besides a multivitamin is the vitamin D. I think somebody told me to get enough, you'd have to like stand outside at noon completely naked every day from the sunshine. So most of us can't do that. So we're better off taking a vitamin.
Thank you. Nobody takes probiotics regularly?
Well, I eat yogurt every day.
Okay.
Yeah, because I like it. But if you didn't like probiotics, then that would be a good supplement to take.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of research you want to look into, make sure about the viability and all that. But
Yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you
Sure.
for your question.
And great job.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good
Thank
questions.
you so much. And then I have 2 more questions in the chat, and just to be cognizant of everyone's time, we'll wrap up with those 2. First one, this is more of a grad school overall question. Are any of Hood's programs PhD? So our 3 tracks are master's level in the nutrition program. We do have 2 doctoral programs outside of nutrition in business administration and organizational leadership. And
But
then,
that's a good question because I sit on an Ascend, that's the accrediting body committee, and we're developing standards for a practice doctorate. So that's, once we launch this, that's down the line, I hope.
absolutely, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And then our next question, and Dr. Davis, maybe this one will be better for you to answer.
Yeah.
Does the sustainability track also help to become an RD?
That's a good question. The sustainability track, it does not lead to a registered dietitian. However, if you take the dietetics track that leads to the registered dietitian, there are some sustainability ability nutrition courses within that, if that helps at all. And you could always do your research on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But other than that, that concludes our webinar tonight. Again, thank you so much to our panelists for attending, and thank you to all of you for attending as well. I highly recommend, if you do have any questions about the graduate school or about this presentation, please keep in touch and we'll be happy to answer anything you have.